For the 8th time, I found Keith Hayes in bed with another woman. This time, I didn't argue. Instead, I just handed my jacket to the new girl, my voice flat. Use the back exit. She gave me one terrified look before scrambling out the door, clutching the jacket like a shield. Keith, propped against the headboard, watched me, a cigarette already lit. Leave her alone, Amelia. She's different. Actually fragile. It's her birthday tonight, so I'll be staying with her. Don't wait up. I nodded, a cold laugh catching in my throat. Because Keith didn't know yet. His new mistress had HIV. Used condoms littered the floor. The air was thick with a stale, familiar scent. I put on a mask, opened the window wide, and did not look at him again. He blew a lazy smoke ring, watching my movements with idle curiosity. Change of heart? Not filing for divorce today? Finally learned how the world works. Yes, my voice was soft. I've learned. Keith scoffed. Took you long enough. He stretched, the picture of indolence, and began pulling on his clothes. In our circles, the marriage contract is just the opening act. Once the performance is over, everyone finds their own entertainment. It's better you accept it. Saves us the tedious drama. I turned, silently watching him button his shirt. You really aren't coming back tonight? I asked. Nope. He buckled his belt, glancing at me. Why? Is today some special occasion? I shook my head. Just asking. Oh right, he paused at the doorway. We're running low on condoms. Could you pick some up when you get a chance? Sure. The door clicked shut. I stood by the window a moment longer, watching his headlights cut through the night, disappearing at the end of the tree-lined drive. Then I picked up my phone and dialed a number. He's gone, I said. You can start cleaning now. 5 minutes later, 3 people in full hazmat suits entered the room. They efficiently gathered the scattered condoms, wiped down every surface with a special disinfectant, and stripped all the bedding, sealing it in airtight bags. The lead woman, a middle-aged professional, nodded to me. Mrs. Hayes, it's all handled. Rest assured, there will be no risk of infection left behind. Thank you, I said. Especially this bedroom, make sure it's thoroughly disinfected. Understood. I saw the wedding photo on the wall, defaced with a lipstick X by one of his lovers. His affairs had cost me 2 pregnancies, leaving me unable to conceive again. I calmly closed the bedroom door, turned, and walked downstairs. On the living room coffee table sat a cake box. I picked up the complimentary candle, stuck it into the cake, and lit it. Keith only remembered that today was his mistress's birthday. He forgot it was mine too. The flame danced. I stared at it for a long time, then blew it out. I had planned to ask for a divorce, but now, I didn't want to. I wanted all his assets, all his power. For 5 consecutive days, Keith didn't come home. But his mistress, as if given silent permission, messaged and sent videos to me right on schedule. He said I'm the kind of person he really wants. He said he's been tired of a homebody like you for ages. He's not coming back again tonight. Aren't you lonely sleeping alone? I didn't reply to a single one. I just took my medication on time, had my regular checkups, slept soundly, and instructed my assistant to categorize and archive all her screenshots. On the 6th night, Keith called me. I was at the hospital then, having just finished a series of tests, sitting on a bench in the hallway, waiting for the results. His voice on the phone was hoarse, tinged with the breathlessness of overindulgence. Amelia, he called my name. Someone's been snapping pictures of Chloe and me lately. There's an interview tomorrow. I need you to come to the office and help her clear things up. I was silent for 2 seconds. Clear what up? Just say it was all a misunderstanding, that she's just a student I'm sponsoring, and you were there too, he paused. You know she's young. She can't handle all this public scrutiny. I looked down at the needle marks on the back of my hand, that hadn't quite faded. Okay, I said. A clear sigh of relief came from the other end. You're always so understanding, his tone softened. How about I come home tonight and spend some time with you? It's been a while since we. I'm not really available these past couple of days. I cut him off, lowering my gaze. My period. The phone line went quiet for a moment. All right. He sounded a bit annoyed, but quickly returned to his coaxing tone. Well, get some sleep then, and don't overthink things. After hanging up, I looked at the darkened screen and suddenly felt like laughing. He thought I was saving myself for him. He had no idea, I simply found him disgusting. The next day's interview was scheduled in the lobby of the Hayes Corporation building. The media turned out in full force, a flurry of cameras and microphones aimed at us, the model couple. I linked my arm through Keith's, my makeup flawless, my smile gentle and poised. When asked about the rumors, he instinctively glanced at me. I took the microphone from him. This has all been a misunderstanding, I said, my smile practiced and calm. Ms. Davis is a student my husband sponsors. She's been unwell, and he's shown her appropriate kindness. A few photos were taken out of context and given a rather dramatic interpretation. I trust we can all now put this to rest. Someone from the crowd pressed on. Mrs. Hayes, are you truly not bothered at all? I turned my head to look at Keith, my eyes full of devotion and trust. Of course I trust him. At that moment, his grip on my wrist noticeably tightened, but halfway through the interview his phone buzzed with a message. Keith's face changed almost instantly. He stood up, not even sparing me a glance. My apologies, something urgent just came up. He said this to the host, and was already turning to leave. I remained seated, still holding the microphone. The media erupted in a stir. Someone loudly asked, "Mr. Hayes, is it about Ms. Davis? We heard she was hospitalized." His steps faltered for a second, then he walked out without looking back. I sat there alone in the brightest spotlight, cleaning up his mess, continuing to play the part of the devoted wife. Afterward, Ryan, my assistant, cautiously asked, "Mrs. Hayes, are you all right?" I stood up, straightened my dress, and smiled. "I'm perfectly fine." And I truly was. Because I knew he had just pushed me one step closer to the finish line. That night he didn't come home. He only sent me a message. "Her fever's really high. I'm at the hospital. You go to sleep first." I replied with a single word. "Okay." Then I thought for a moment and sent another message. "My mom isn't feeling too well. I need to go back to my parents' place tomorrow for about a month. Want me to come with you? It's nothing serious, I can handle it." "Okay." I sent the message, set my phone aside with a quiet exhale, and turned my attention to the newly arrived report on my desk. Its conclusion was stark. Incubation period complete. The virus is now transmissible. The next morning, I packed my bags and left the mansion. As the car drove out of the tree-lined driveway, I glanced in the rearview mirror at the house I'd lived in for 4 years. The morning mist hadn't lifted yet, and a dull, gray light enveloped the entire garden. The garden was filled with red roses. He'd had them flown in from France years ago, simply because I'd once said I liked them. The golden boy of the city's elite social scene, a true scion of wealth, had spent months planting those 999 roses with me by hand. Back then, to achieve maximum aesthetic appeal, he'd even stayed up late for 9 nights, revising the rose layout himself. I used to tease him. "You're such a perfectionist, even worse than me." He'd bent down and kissed my forehead. "That's because this is our home." Our home. I looked away, leaned back into the seat, and closed my eyes. Now his parade of mistresses never ended, and I was the only one left tending to the roses. Our home had become their hotel. I didn't go to my parents' place. Instead, I went directly to a private retreat in the suburbs. The doctor was already waiting for me. "According to current data, you show no signs of infection," he said, flipping through reports. "But for absolute safety, it's best if you avoid close contact with anyone for the next month." "I understand," I nodded. "As for Mr. Hayes." He paused, not finishing his sentence. "Just keep observing him." I finished for him. "Any results, let me know immediately." I moved into a small house at the very back of the retreat. My daily life was simple and routine: follow-ups, medication, reading, walks. It felt like patiently waiting for a countdown. On the 7th night, Keith called me. It was the first time he'd contacted me since I left. When I answered, the background was noisy, like a business dinner. "Where are you?" he asked, his tone a little impatient. "My parents' place," I said calmly. "Why haven't you replied to my messages?" He sounded annoyed. "I haven't been feeling well these past few days. Maybe I'm just tired. When are you coming back?" "I'm not sure," I said softly. "I still need to take care of my mother." He was clearly displeased but kept his temper in check. "All right, well, take care of yourself then." Before hanging up, he added, "Oh, by the way, Chloe has been discharged. She doesn't know anyone in the city, so I've let her stay here for a few days. She's in your bedroom. So don't be surprised when you get back and don't overthink it." I hummed in acknowledgement. Of course, I wouldn't overthink it, because that, originally, was the perfect place I had chosen for them. For more days passed. This time, it was his assistant who called me. Ryan's voice on the phone was frantic. "Mrs. Hayes, Mr. Hayes is in trouble." My fingers tightened around the phone. What happened to him? He had a high fever all last night that wouldn't break. This morning he was rushed to the hospital. The doctors said the situation is a bit complicated and asked for a family member to come in as soon as possible. I was silent for 2 seconds. "Which hospital?" Ryan gave me the address. It was the same one Chloe had been in. "I understand," I said. "I'll be there as soon as I can." After hanging up, I sat on the edge of the bed, looking out at the quiet lawn. The sun was bright. Too bright for anything bad to be happening. The doctor knocked and came in. He looked at me. "Are you going out?" "Yes." I stood up. "To see my husband." He looked like he wanted to say more, but in the end he only said, "Please be careful." I smiled, putting on my mask. "Don't worry." I valued my life more than anyone. As the car drove into the city, my phone lit up again. It was a message from Keith. "Where are you?" I stared at the 2 words for a long time before replying. On my way. I don't feel good. The doctor is seeing to it. He was probably really unsettled. Whenever he'd been sick before, I was always there, by his bedside, giving him water, medicine, staying awake all night. He was used to me always being there. But this time he could only reach me through a screen. I didn't reply again. The hospital's disinfectant smell was heavy. Ryan waited for me at the entrance, his face looking worse than I'd imagined. Mrs. Hayes, he whispered. The doctor has done a preliminary check on Mr. Hayes and suggested further specialized testing. I nodded. I know. When I pushed open the door to his room, Keith was propped against the headboard, receiving an 4 drip. He'd lost a bit of weight, and his complexion was terrible. The moment he saw me, he clearly froze, then visibly relaxed. In that instant, the reliance in his eyes was almost primal. I walked over and placed my bag aside. What's wrong with you? I feel weak all over, he frowned. My head hurts too. The doctor said it might be an infection. He said it so casually as if he were talking about a common cold. I tucked the blanket around him, my movements as gentle as always. Don't worry, I said softly. You'll be all right. He looked at me, then suddenly reached out and grabbed my wrist. Amelia. His voice was a little hoarse. This whole time, thank you for everything. I looked down at the hand holding mine. His fingers were long and slender, hands that had countless times led me through crowds. We're married, I said. Only then did he seem to relax, his eyes slowly closing. Not long after, the doctor entered and asked to speak with me outside. He met my gaze briefly before extending the report. Amelia, the results are back. I took it. My eyes went straight to the decisive line. Confirmed infection. I was perfectly calm. So calm, it even surprised me a little. Does he know yet? I asked. Not yet, the doctor said. In cases like this, we recommend a family member informs them. I nodded. I'll do it. When I returned to the room, Keith was still asleep. Sunlight lay across his peacefully innocent face, frozen in a moment before it all began. I sat by his bedside and watched him for a long while. Then I softly called his name. Keith. He opened his eyes. I looked at him, my voice as gentle as it had ever been. The doctor says you're quite ill. He froze. Ill. With what? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I simply laid the report on the sheets before him. Keith picked up the paper, his movements sluggish from the fever. He squinted at the medical jargon, his brow furrowing. For a moment, the room was silent except for the rhythmic drip of the 4 and the distant hum of hospital machinery. Then his eyes stopped moving. He stared at that one line. HIV, 1 antibody, positive. I watched the color drain from his face, turning it a sickly, ashen gray. His hand started to tremble, just slightly at first, then violently, until the paper rattled like dry leaves in a storm. This is wrong, he whispered. His voice was no longer the arrogant drawl I knew so well. It was thin, reedy. This is a mistake. Ryan, get the doctor. It's not a mistake, Keith, I said quietly. Ryan is outside. He knows. The doctor knows. He looked up at me, his eyes wide with a terror so raw it was almost pitiful. Amelia, this is impossible. I'm careful. I get tested. When was your last test? I asked. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. We both knew the answer. It had been over a year. He was too busy living his life, too invincible to worry about consequences. Chloe, he choked out. That bitch. She told me she was clean. She showed me papers. Papers can be forged, Keith, I said, smoothing the blanket over his legs. Just like promises. He stared at the wall, his breathing coming in short, panicked gasps. She ruined me. She killed me. Not yet, I said. With medication, people live long lives now. It's manageable. He laughed, then a high hysterical sound. Manageable? In my world. In our world. Do you know what happens when this gets out? The board will remove me. My friends won't shake my hand. I'll be a pariah. He turned to me, gripping my arm with desperate strength. You can't leave me, Amelia. You have to stay. If you leave, everyone will know why. You have to help me hide this. I looked at his hand on my arm, the hand that had caressed so many others while I waited at home, the hand that had pushed me away when I cried over our lost babies. I won't leave you, I lied. Not right now. He slumped back against the pillows, tears leaking from his eyes. Thank God. Thank God. Amelia, I'm sorry. About everything. I'll change. I swear. Just fix this. Rest now, I said. I'll handle the press. I'll handle everything. I walked out of the room, leaving him to his nightmare. Outside, Ryan was pacing. He looked at me with a mixture of fear and respect. Is he? He knows, I said. Prepare a statement. Mr. Hayes has a severe viral infection and needs extended leave for recovery. Keep it vague. And Ryan? Yes, Mrs. Hayes? Make sure all his current, Acquaintances are notified anonymously. We don't want an epidemic on our hands. Ryan nodded, looking sick. And Chloe? Oh, I smiled, a small cold curve of my lips. Don't worry about Chloe. I'll take care of her personally. I found Chloe exactly where Keith said she would be. In my bedroom. She was lounging on my chaise, wearing one of my silk robes, scrolling through her phone. When I walked in, she jumped, nearly dropping the device. Mrs. Hayes. She scrambled to sit up, pulling the robe tight. She looked frail, her skin pale and clammy. Keith said it was okay for me to stay. I know, I said, closing the door behind me. I walked over to the vanity and picked up a bottle of perfume Keith had bought me for our anniversary. I turned it in my hands, feeling the heavy glass. Did he tell you he's in the hospital? I asked. Chloe's eyes widened. Is he okay? He stopped answering my texts. He has HIV, I said. The silence in the room was deafening. Chloe stared at me, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. No, she whispered. That's not true. It is, I said. And since you're the one who gave it to him, I imagine you already knew. She flinched. I didn't know. I had an ex who was sick, but I tested negative. The window period. I thought I was safe. You gambled, I said, stepping closer. With your life. With his. And nearly with mine. She started to cry, messy, ugly sobs. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I just wanted. He was so nice to me. He gave me money. He made me feel special. He made you feel special because you were new, I said. Just like the ones before you. And the ones before them. I looked around the room. Her clothes were scattered on the floor. My jewelry box was open. Get out, I said. Where will I go? She stammered. I don't have anywhere. That's not my problem. You have 10 minutes. Anything left behind will be burned. I turned and walked to the door. Mrs. Hayes, she called out. Are you going to tell the police? Are you going to sue me? I stopped and looked back at her. She looked so young, so stupid, and so doomed. No, I said. I don't need to do anything to you, Chloe. You're already dying. And now you have to live with the fact that you took someone down with you. I left her there, and went downstairs to the kitchen. I made myself a cup of tea. The house was quiet. The staff had been given the day off. I sat at the kitchen island and pulled out my phone. I dialed my lawyer. It's time, I said. Initiate the transfer of assets. He's incapacitated. The power of attorney clause is active. Are you sure, Amelia? My lawyer asked. Once we start this, there's no going back. If he recovers. He won't recover his reputation, I said. And by the time he's well enough to fight, I'll own everything. The next month was a blur of board meetings, legal filings, and hospital visits. Keith's condition worsened before it stabilized. The virus had hit his immune system hard, compounded by pneumonia. He was weak, bedridden, and utterly dependent on me. I visited him every day. I played the role of the grieving, supportive wife to perfection. The nurses whispered about my devotion. The doctors praised my strength. But inside the boardroom of Hayes Corp., I was a different person. Keith is stepping down, I announced to the shocked faces of the shareholders. His health does not permit him to lead. As his proxy and primary beneficiary, I am taking over as interim CEO. There was resistance, of course. Old men in expensive suits who didn't think a woman, let alone a trophy wife, could run a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate. But I had something they didn't. I had Keith's secrets. I had Ryan deliver files to 3 of the most vocal dissenters. Photos of their own indiscretions. Financial irregularities Keith had kept as leverage. By the end of the week, the board voted unanimously to appoint me. When I told Keith, he was too weak to argue. You're doing this for us, right? He rasped, gripping my hand with his sweaty one. To protect the company until I'm back. Of course, darling. I smoothed his hair. I'm just keeping the seat warm. He closed his eyes, relief washing over his face. You're the only one I can trust, Amelia. I see that now. All those other women, they were nothing. You're my partner. I smiled. Rest now. I walked out of the hospital and got into the waiting limousine. To the office, I told the driver. As we drove through the city, I looked at the skyline. I saw the Hayes Corp Tower rising above the rest. It was mine now. But I wasn't done. I wanted him to have nothing. Not just no money, but no hope. I went to the office and called Ryan in. I want you to leak the news, I said. Ryan blinked. Which news? About Keith's condition. Not the specifics. Just that it's contagious. Venereal. Let the rumors do the rest. Ryan hesitated. Mrs. Hayes, that will destroy him. Socially, he'll be finished. He destroyed me first, I said, looking at the family photo on Keith's desk. I picked it up and dropped it into the trash. Do it. The rumors spread like wildfire. Keith Hayes, the secret illness. The Playboy's curse. Society turned its back on him overnight. Friends stopped visiting. Invitations dried up. His phone stopped ringing. When he was finally discharged from the hospital, 3 months later he came home to a silent house. I was waiting for him in the living room. He looked gaunt. He walked with a cane. The once vibrant, arrogant man was a shadow. Amelia, he said, looking around. Where are the servants? Why is it so quiet? I let them go, I said. We're downsizing. Downsizing? He frowned. What are you talking about? Hayes Corp just posted record profits. Hayes Corp did, I corrected. You didn't. I picked up a file from the coffee table and tossed it to him. What is this? Divorce papers. He stared at them, then at me. A laugh bubbled up in his throat, disbelief warring with panic. Divorce? Amelia, you said you wouldn't leave me. You said we were partners. I lied, I said. You can't do this. I'm sick. I need you. You need a nurse, I said. And I'm sure you can hire one with whatever allowance the court grants you. Allowance? He flipped open the file. His eyes scanned the pages, growing wider with every line. You took everything. The house, the cars, the stocks. How? How did you do this? Power of attorney, I said simply. You signed it, Keith. Remember? When you were feverish and scared and begging me to save the company. He staggered back, collapsing onto the sofa. You tricked me. You planned this. I learned from the best, I said. You treated our marriage like a transaction. I just closed the deal. He looked at me with pure hatred. You bitch. You heartless bitch. I preferred homebody, I said, standing up. But bitch works too. I'll fight this, he snarled. I'll get the best lawyers. I'll drag you through the mud. With what money? I asked. Your accounts are frozen pending the divorce settlement. And no lawyer will take your case on contingency when they know I have evidence of your infidelity, your reckless endangerment of my health, and your squandering of marital assets. I walked over to him. He shrank away, as if I were the one who was contagious. And Keith, I lowered my voice. Everyone knows about your condition. If you fight me, I'll release the medical records. I'll make sure every tabloid in the country knows exactly which student gave it to you. He crumbled. He put his head in his hands and wept. It wasn't the crying of a man who was sorry. It was the crying of a man who had lost the game. Get out, I said. This is my house. Not anymore. It's in my name. You have an apartment downtown. The one you bought for Chloe. I had it cleaned. It's yours now. He looked up, tears streaking his face. You're sending me to the whore's apartment? Poetic justice, don't you think? He stood up, shaking. He grabbed his cane. You'll regret this, Amelia. You'll be alone. I've been alone for years, Keith, I said. At least now I'm rich. He walked to the door. He paused, looking back at the roses in the garden. I planted those for you, he whispered. And then you let them die, I said. Goodbye, Keith. He walked out. I locked the door behind him. A year later, I stood on the balcony of the Hayes Corp Tower, looking out over the city. The company was thriving under my leadership. I had rebranded, shifted focus to sustainable energy, and cleaned house. The old guard was gone. I was feared. I was respected. And yes, I was alone. But it was a different kind of loneliness. It was peaceful. I went home to the mansion. The roses were gone. I had dug them up and planted lilies. White, resilient lilies. I walked into the living room. There was a cake on the table. Today was my birthday. I lit the candle. I didn't blow it out this time. I let it burn. My phone rang. It was Ryan. Mrs. Hayes, I have an update on the former Mr. Hayes. Go ahead. He's not doing well. The medication isn't working as effectively as hoped. And he's destitute. He's asking for help. I watched the flame dance. Send him a list of state-funded hospices, I said. Is that all? That's all. I hung up. I picked up a fork and took a bite of the cake. It was sweet. Rich. I walked over to the mirror. I looked at myself. I saw the fine lines around my eyes, the steel in my gaze. I wasn't the girl who waited by the window anymore. I wasn't the wife who cleaned up the mess. I was the survivor. The doorbell rang. I frowned. I wasn't expecting anyone. I walked to the door and checked the monitor. It was a man. Tall, broad-shouldered. He was holding a bouquet of lilies. It was David, the doctor who had treated me at the retreat. The one who had told me to be careful. I opened the door. Amelia, he smiled. I heard it was your birthday. I looked at the lilies. How did you know? I remember things, he said. May I come in? I hesitated. My walls were high. My trust was broken. But he wasn't Keith. He was the man who had looked at me with concern when I was nothing but a discarded wife. Just for a minute, I said. He stepped inside. Nice flowers, he said, nodding toward the garden. Lilies suit you better. Why is that? They're stronger than they look. We walked into the living room. He saw the single slice of cake missing. Celebrating solo. It's a habit. Well, he placed the flowers on the table. Habits can be broken. He looked at me, and for the first time in years, I didn't see calculation in a man's eyes. I saw warmth. Happy birthday, Amelia. I smiled. It felt genuine. Thank you, David. Maybe the story wasn't over. Maybe this was just the beginning. I looked at the wedding photo spot on the wall, now covered by a beautiful abstract painting. The X was gone. The stain was washed away. And I was finally clean.